This herb comes in an amazing tea that is very, very good for anxiety and insomnia. Now, within traditional Chinese medicine, there are all kinds of different traditional herbal prescriptions that can help with anxiety and insomnia. If you think, ancient people have dealt with fear since the beginning of time, and this is probably the safest time a human being could ever be alive. But for modern people, there's more of a kind of adrenal-related anxiety and insomnia. And let's talk about some of the formulas that can help. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Alex Heyne, board licensed doctor of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, and author of the health book, Master the Day. Let's jump in. Now, when I was in my medical program, which was 4 years long, working 50 hours a week, and then also working 20 hours a week so that I didn't die in massive student debt at the end of my life, and at some point, like a lot of us students there, I had pushed myself into a pretty serious amount of anxiety, panic attacks, and severe insomnia. And I knew that when I slept better, the anxiety symptoms were better. And when I always slept well, I never had a hint of anxiety at all. So one of the supervisors there gave me a formula, a traditional herbal prescription, that looked like just basically a big bag of seeds, effectively. Now, while it looked like a weird amount of seeds, including this herb here at Dazao, there were very fine sediment and seeds when it was done. And at the end, he said, I want you to basically drink this entire decoction today. Let us know how you sleep in the next couple days. And that night, for the first night, I slept over 7 hours and I woke up without anxiety in months. And so while I took that formula for months and months and months and months to buffer all the damage I was causing to my nervous system and to my adrenals, I was just amazed by this experience, and I was very intrigued and trying to understand what this actual magical herb was. So what was that formula? It's a formula called Xuanzao Ren Tang. And this is a very overused traditional Chinese medicine formula for the kind of nervous system dysregulated sleep that often is like adrenal related. So what does actually the research say about this formula, Xuanzao Ren Tang? Now, the first research paper here is called the anxiolytic-like effect of Xuanzao Ren and Wu Weizi herb pair. Wu Weizi is another herb that typically we use to stop cough, but in a lot of clinical research, what they found is that Wu Weizi is very effective for regulating the stress response. And what they found here in this paper was that the Xuanzao Ren and also the other herb, Wu Weizi, produced an anxiolytic-like effect. And the mechanism of action involved the way it regulated both serotonin and dopamine. Now, the second research paper here is called Screening the Effective Components of Xuanzao Ren decoction on the treatment of chronic restraint stress-induced anxiety like mice. And what the researchers found was, again, the Xuanzao Ren decoction showed obvious anxiolytic effects as well as hypnotic effects with no muscle relaxation effects. So basically, there was a regulating effect on the nervous system and many of the different physiological pathways related to stress, but there wasn't, for example, like a Xanax or muscle relaxer-like effect. Now, of course, if you have anxiety or insomnia, what determines the efficacy of the treatment, whether it is conventional medicine or traditional Chinese medicine formulas, is the correct diagnosis. But how do you actually know where your anxiety or insomnia is coming from? Now, I've recently put together a free workshop called The Lost Chinese Practices that are quietly helping people conquer anxiety and insomnia. And the entire workshop is all about treating this quote-unquote adrenal fatigue with traditional Chinese medicine specifically. What herbal formulas do we use? What lifestyle practices? What acupuncture or acupressure points? And it's the link right below this video, guys. So check that out because it's something that we really dive into. It's about an hour or 45 minutes long, and it will go specifically into my story of experiencing this and let's say the 4 or 5, the half a dozen practices from traditional Chinese medicine that you can start doing today. So check it out there down below. From a scientific point of view, we say that Xuanzao Ren is primarily working on what we call the liver and the kidney yin. A lot of the time when people are having issues with insomnia and anxiety, particularly if it's related to the adrenals and the chronic stress response, what these herbs do is we say that they basically settle the shen or calm the spirit. And there are other ways we can do that. We use a formula combination of longu, and then you have muli, oyster shell. So these minerals are often very, very, very sedative by nature. And there are a whole host of other herbs that we can use. But in general, Xuanzao Ren, when they've looked at it from a scientific point of view, there are 4 or 5 main physiological pathways that it helps you basically sleep. So the first way that Xuanzao Ren helps you improve your overall mood and sleep is that it works on GABA. one of the key neurotransmitters in the brain. Now, in particular, what they found is that swanzalren has been found to upregulate your GABA receptors, which promotes sedation and basically an anti-anxiety kind of effect. So the second way that this particular herb and formula works is working on serotonin. So for example, researchers have found that serotonin transmission can be modulated from this formula, which is really important for your mood regulation and even your sleep cycle maintenance. And on top of that, it actually has interactions with melatonin production. So it's really important for circadian rhythm regulation. So that can be an issue with your serotonin, can be issue obviously with sunlight exposure, can be an issue with many different physiological pathways, but swanzalren can improve that. The third pathway is that swanzalren tong actually regulates your cortisol secretion. So cortisol being one of our primary stress hormones, primarily with chronic stress, researchers have found that swanzalren tong actually lowers your stress-induced cortisol increases. So it can actually downregulate or downshift that hyperactive HPA axis we talked about, leading to a more stable stress response and better sleep. Now finally, swanzalren tong also works on the inflammatory and the antioxidant pathways. So for example, they found that this formula has neuroprotective effects. Some studies have shown it has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. So this formula is quite a famous, although very overused and very, very expensive formula to purchase. But this was just one of those formulas that really blew me away learning the efficacy of traditional Chinese medicine. So it's worth checking out. There's lots of research on it. Now I've covered lots more of this material, like the 4 to 5 daily practices you can do if you're having issues with anxiety and insomnia, or you have quote unquote adrenal fatigue. Check out that free workshop I put together. First link right below this video. And that workshop is about an hour long of material going through my story of what I experienced, the herbal formulas we use, the half dozen or so practices from traditional Chinese medicine, very different from conventional medicine, where if you have this, you're just going to be getting basically Xanax, an antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication, and sleeping pills. Traditional Chinese medicine is a very, very different view, and I have lots of experience treating this clinically in my practice, so I'd highly recommend checking out the workshop. The whole thing's free, it's like an hour long. First link below this video, and that will dive into a lot more in that, so you can check it out. And don't forget guys, I work with a limited number of new patients in my clinic every single month in Los Angeles or virtually via telemedicine. If you want to reach out and learn more, you can just go to either dralexheyne.com/clinic, or there's information in the bio of this video. You'll see our clinic phone number, email, and a direct booking link for a consultation if you want that as well. So check those out, and don't forget, I have another great video on anxiety right here.